My Sil told me that my wedding dress is the worst gown she has ever seen, but my brother's speech revealed her plans to ruin my wedding. My name is Eleanor Ellie Hayes, and I was until 3 weeks ago in the blissful, chaotic final countdown to my wedding. I was marrying Liam Campbell, the kindest, most patient man on the planet, and the day was set for a gorgeous autumn ceremony at a restored estate in upstate New York. Everything was perfect, except for one constant grating element, my soon to be sister in law, Veronica Campbell. Veronica, or V, as she prefers to be called, is Liam's older sister. She's a successful, high powered fashion buyer in Manhattan, and she treats every non V event as a personal affront to her taste level. She has critiqued my fiance's apartment, my catering choices, and the shade of white I chose for the invitations. But the real drama began 3 weeks ago during my final wedding dress fitting. I had chosen a vintage inspired gown, silk crepe, high neck, long lace sleeves, and a column silhouette that felt elegant and timeless, more Audrey Hepburn than Disney princess. I loved it. My mother cried. My maid of honor swore it was divine. Then Veronica arrived. She walked into the bridal salon clad in a sleek black jumpsuit and designer sunglasses, like she was walking the runway, not a suburban mall. All right, let's see this thing, she commanded, snapping a photo of the dress bag before I even stepped onto the podium. I emerged feeling beautiful and vulnerable. The seamstress zipped me up. I turned to face the mirrors and I searched Veronica's face for the slightest hint of approval. She didn't clap, she didn't smile. She just slowly pushed her designer sunglasses up onto her head and fixed me with a look of pure, withering contempt. Oh, Ellie, she finally drawled, her voice cutting through the quiet room. What do you think, V? I asked, trying to sound cheerful. She circled me once slowly like a predator sizing up prey. She touched the delicate lace on my sleeve, then recoiled slightly. I think, she announced, speaking with the authority of a Supreme Court justice, that this is without hyperbole the worst gown I have ever seen. My mother gasped. My maid of honor glared. I felt my cheeks instantly burn with humiliation. It looks like a discarded tablecloth from a 1950s retirement home, Veronica continued, oblivious to the silence. The lace is dated, the high neck is restrictive, and the color is less ivory and more old toothpaste. It does absolutely nothing for your figure. I I chose it because it's classic, I stammered, feeling tears sting my eyes. Darling, classic is Chanel. This is Sears, she finished. Honestly, Elliot's going to make our wedding photos look like a vintage reject pile. You need to scrap it and let me fly in the sample I picked out from Milan. I finally found my voice laced with cold anger. Veronica, the wedding is 3 weeks away. This is my dress. End of discussion. Fine, she sighed dramatically, pulling out her phone. Have your little Sears moment. Just don't expect me to pose next to you in the receiving line. She snapped one final unflattering photo of the dress. Consider this an aesthetic casualty. She stormed out of the salon, leaving me standing there, feeling every bit as ugly and antiquated as she had described. My joy in the dress was completely extinguished. The warning. I called my brother Marcus that night. Marcus is my anchor, straightforward, loyal, and immune to high fashion drama. He's also the one who knows Veronica best, as has a close family friend of the Campbells. She called my dress the worst gown she's ever seen. I told him the tears I held back earlier finally falling. Marcus listened patiently. Ellie, she does this. She's threatened by anything she can't control. She did the same thing to Liam's cousin, but worse. But this is my wedding, Marcus. Exactly, he said, his voice dropping slightly. Look, she's obsessed with image. She doesn't just hate the dress. She hates that your wedding might not live up to her standards. I heard her talking to Liam's uncle a few weeks ago, and it wasn't just critiques. She was planning something. Planning what? I whispered. I don't know the details, but it was about minimizing the damage and ensuring the optics are manageable. She wants to take control of the narrative of your wedding. Be careful, Elle. She's not just criticizing your taste. She's positioning herself for something major on the day. I hung up the words ringing in my ears. Veronica wasn't just a judgmental fashionista, she was a saboteur, and she had 3 weeks to execute her plan. My beautiful, perfect wedding was now a target. Marcus's warning had stripped away my post-fitting humiliation and replaced it with sharp focus. Veronica wasn't just mean. She was actively plotting. My wedding wasn't just 3 weeks away. It was 3 weeks away from a potential ambush. My immediate problem was information. Veronica was smart and meticulously guarded her plans, and Liam, bless his patient soul, was completely blind to his sister's machinations, constantly dismissing her actions as V being V. I couldn't trust him to help me, and I couldn't confront Veronica without proof. I had to become a detective. The venue walkthrough. My first target was the wedding rehearsal and logistics meeting scheduled for the following Saturday at the estate. Veronica, of course, was attending, claiming she needed to ensure the lighting doesn't clash with the reception linens. The estate was a gorgeous, sprawling property with a small rustic chapel and an adjacent reception barn. I noticed the first red flag almost immediately. The estate manager, a wonderful woman named Diane, pulled me aside. Ellie, I'm sorry, but we had a small hiccup. The florist you hired, Petal and Vine, they called and said they couldn't fulfill the order and recommended a different vendor. They canceled. They've been booked for 6 months. They said they realized they didn't have enough rare mountain greenery to match the specific look, Diane explained. They pushed us toward Bloom and Burst instead. Bloom and Burst was a high-end contemporary and incredibly expensive florist I had explicitly rejected for being too modern. I checked the initial email from Petal and Vine. The cancellation was terse and professional, citing logistical limitations. I called Marcus immediately. V's started. My florist canceled, citing a problem with rare mountain greenery. She's trying to replace my rustic arrangements with something modern and flashy. She's isolating your vendors, Marcus confirmed. She's inserting her own people who will follow her design brief, not yours. The seating chart sabotage. The second red flag appeared later that day during the seating chart review. Liam's mother, Carol, handed me the final approved list from Veronica for the VIP tables, meaning her friends and major family figures. I noticed 3 key changes. 1. My grandparents. My 85-year-old grandparents, who rely on easy access, had been moved from the table nearest the chapel door to the farthest table near the noisy kitchen entrance. 2. Liam's business rival. Liam had gone out of his way to not invite his biggest, most aggressive business rival, Mark Peterson, to avoid any professional tension. Mark Peterson's name was now neatly pinned into table 3. 3. The dressmaker. Mrs. Albright, my seamstress and lifelong family friend who custom-made my Sears dress, was completely removed from the guest list. Carol, why is Mark Peterson invited? And why are my grandparents next to the blender? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. Veronica insisted. Carol mumbled, avoiding eye contact. She said the rival was a networking opportunity and your grandparents' seats provided a better flow for the photographers. And Mrs. Albright. Veronica claimed there were too many guests, and she had to make some hard cuts for fire code. Carol whispered apologetically. She took care of all the final details. Veronica wasn't just changing the decor. She was targeting comfort, peace, and the people I loved. She was ensuring maximum disruption and distress. Removing Mrs. Albright was a pointed insult about the dress. Seating Liam's rival was a guaranteed stressor for my fiancé, the decoy plan. I finally confronted Veronica that evening, careful to do it in a highly public but casual setting, the estate's front porch where Liam was nowhere in sight. Veronica, the new florist, is beautiful, but I've already paid the deposit to Petal and Vine, I said, forcing a smile. Nonsense, darling, she replied coolly, checking her phone. Consider it an upgrade. You need the splash of color to distract from, well, you know. And the seating chart, I pressed. Mark Peterson is a bad idea. It's about projecting success, Ellie. It's not a garden party. It's a social investment. Her arrogance was staggering. I realized that arguing with her was useless. I had to feed her a decoy. Well, you may be right about the dress. I sighed dramatically, pretending to concede. It is a little too tight, and the lace is itchy. I might just wear the simple backup white sheath I bought for the rehearsal dinner. It's much simpler. Veronica's eyes lit up with predatory glee. Now that's a smart decision. Ellie, simple, clean, modern. I'll tell the photographer to focus on the floral arrangements. They'll be the real showstopper now. I had successfully planted the idea that I might scrap the Sears gown and replace it with a sleek, simple dress. This would redirect her focus. She would now concentrate her sabotage efforts on ensuring the backup dress was suitable, or perhaps focusing on destroying the reception decor, thinking the dress drama was over. But I knew the truth. My beloved vintage gown was still the main target, and the biggest threat was still to come: the wedding speech. I had to prepare Marcus for his role. The only person who could reveal her plan had to be the person she would never suspect. The moment I convinced Veronica that I might wear the simple white sheath was the moment I solidified my main plan. The dress was staying, and the focus of the wedding would be the exposure of her malice. I knew I couldn't fight her directly during the wedding. Veronica was too much of a master manipulator. Any public accusation from me would look like a bridal meltdown. I needed an unbiased messenger, someone who could deliver the truth wrapped in a blanket of loyalty and affection. That person was my brother Marcus. I arranged a clandestine meeting with Marcus the following night. We met at a quiet bar downtown, far from the prying eyes of the Campbells. She's targeting the dress and the optics file, I explained, showing him the seating chart and the florist cancellation. She wants the wedding to look like a failed event that she bravely managed to save. My dress is her first target, but the real target is my reputation. Marcus nodded grimly. She's treating your wedding like a hostile takeover. So what's the counter plan? Phase 1, securing the assets. First, we secure the vulnerabilities, I said. 1. The dress. I instructed Mrs. Albright, who was livid about being cut from the guest list, to deliver the finished gown directly to a secure off-site storage unit, not the bridal suite at the estate. I would only retrieve it hours before the ceremony. Veronica would have no chance to spill wine, snag the lace, or accidentally swap it with her Milan sample. 2. The seating chart. I created a perfectly accurate, beautifully printed new seating chart and gave it to Diane, the estate manager, with specific instructions to ignore any further changes from the sister-in-law. I included my grandparents in the place of honor and excised Liam's rival. Structure 3. The florist. I contacted Petal and Vine's owner and promised to pay a substantial inconvenience fee if they honored the original contract and delivered the rustic greenery I wanted, specifically instructing them to block any further communication from the Campbells. The wedding itself is now physically safe, I concluded, but the final stage of her attack will be rhetorical, the speeches. Phase 2, the speech decryption. Veronica, of course, was scheduled to give a toast. It would be devastatingly subtle, praising Liam while issuing backhanded compliments about my suite of slightly naive choices and congratulating me for trying my best despite the limitations. Marcus's speech as the brother of the bride was scheduled right after hers. That was our opening. You need to give a speech that is completely normal for the first 3 minutes, I instructed Marcus. Talk about childhood memories, about how much you love Liam, the usual sentimental stuff. She'll be basking in her own subtle critiques, completely unguarded. And then you need to reveal her plan without explicitly saying Veronica is a monster. You need to use her own words and her own narrative against her, all under the guise of a loving brotherly anecdote. We spent the next 2 hours scripting and rehearsing a 2-minute segment that would look like a heartfelt tribute to me, but was actually a masterclass in passive-aggressive exposure. The key segment, the thesis. Marcus, you need to link the dress to her overall intent, I summarized. Start with the highest point of the wedding, the dress, and use her exact vocabulary to show the entire room that she tried to sabotage the day. We finalized the code phrases. 1, the code word. Every time Marcus mentions the wedding, he must use the phrase, "This perfect day built with such honest effort," a direct contrast to Veronica's implied amateur mess. 2, the dress defense. When discussing me, he must praise the dress using the phrase, "Ellie's beautiful, bold choice of the classic tailored gown," refuting her old toothpaste/Sears comments. 3, the revelation. The line that will expose her actions must be framed as a thank you to Liam. The final rehearsal. Marcus leaned in, ready to perform. "Okay, here's the final turn," he whispered, reciting the key lines we had created. "And that's why Liam is perfect for Ellie. Because he supports her most deeply held convictions. You know, like how he supported her bold choice of the classic tailored gown." He hesitated for a beat, looking pointedly at Veronica. "Liam, you even showed unbelievable restraint by not taking the advice of some people who thought Ellie's choices were a bit too limited, or that they needed to be minimized for better optics. In fact, Liam, I remember you specifically told your sister V, if that dress makes Ellie happy, then the photos will be perfect, exactly the way they are." I felt a surge of triumph. That last linea, fabricated quote from Liam, accomplished 2 things. 1, it exposed the exact vocabulary she used, limited, and minimized for better optics, confirming she was manipulating the day. 2, it framed Liam as the hero who explicitly ignored her sabotage attempts, putting a full stop to her controlling behavior and cementing the love story. "She'll be finished, Marcus," I said, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "She'll realize the entire room knows she tried to ruin my wedding for the sake of her own taste." I walked home that night not with the worry of a nervous bride, but with the cool anticipation of a commander who had just set the final trap. Veronica was coming for my wedding, but I was ready to use her own speech as the stage for her downfall. The wedding day arrived crisp and bright, perfect for an autumn ceremony. The estate was beautiful, and thanks to my preemptive measures, the flowers were the rustic mountain greenery I had envisioned, and the seating charts were accurate. Everything was ready for this perfect day, built with such honest effort, except for the dress and the dread of Veronica's looming presence. My morning was a study in controlled chaos. I refused to let Veronica's critique infect the genuine joy of the day. The decoy and the delay. As a decoy, I deliberately left the backup white sheath I had told Veronica about hanging conspicuously in the bridal suite, ensuring it was the first thing she would see. My real dress, the vintage silk crepe gown, was still safely tucked away in the off-site storage unit guarded by Mrs. Albright. Veronica arrived at the bridal suite around noon, ostensibly to check on the hair and makeup schedule, but actually to survey the landscape. She immediately honed in on the sheath dress. "Oh, thank God, Ellie," she announced, running a judgmental finger over the smooth, unlaced fabric. "The simple sheath, a much safer choice. It'll tell the photographer to adjust the lighting. We need to avoid harsh shadows on that column line." "Thanks, V," I said sweetly, trying not to laugh at her total confidence in my lie. It was a last-minute decision. I just wanted something easier. She immediately shifted her focus to the reception barn, satisfied that the dress crisis was averted and that she could now focus on the more manageable optics of the decor. She stormed off, clipboard in hand, to find the estate manager, the high-stakes delivery. The ceremony was scheduled for 4:00 p.m. My plan was to retrieve the real gown at 1:30 p.m., giving me just enough time to dress without giving Veronica a window to execute any last-minute physical sabotage. At 1:25 p.m., Marcus called the suite. "She's preoccupied. She's currently arguing with the catering manager about the placement of the canapes. Go now." My maid of honor, Jess, and I slipped out a side door and sped to the storage unit. Mrs. Albright was waiting, guarding the gown like a dragon with her treasure. We arrived back at the estate at 1:55 p.m. The gown zipped safely inside its black garment bag. I had just stepped into the quiet seclusion of the bridal suite when the door burst open. It was Veronica. She was sweating, frantic and furious. "Ellie! Where have you been? I need you to confirm the floral placements. The lighting is totally uneven." She snapped. Then she froze. Her eyes landed on the black garment bag draped over the dressing screen. It was too big to hold the sheath dress. "What is that?" she demanded, her voice losing its cool edge. "That's my gown, V," I replied, unzipping the bag and letting the beautiful classic silk crepe fall out. The high neck and delicate lace were suddenly exposed, shining softly in the room's natural light. Veronica gasped, her face going white with rage. She realized she had been tricked. "You lied to me," she hissed, striding toward the dress. "You were going to wear that Sears mistake anyway. After everything I told you, you are trying to sabotage the photos, aren't you?" She lunged toward the dress, her hands outstretched, presumably aiming to snag the lace or accidentally knock the hanger down. Jess instantly stepped in front of the dress, her arms forming an impenetrable barrier. "That's enough, Veronica. Back up." "Get out of my way, Jess. This is a fashion emergency," Veronica snarled. "No, V. It's a wedding. Ellie loves the dress, and you are not touching it," I said, my voice quiet but firm. I walked over and gently took the gown from Jess. "It's too late now, Veronica. I'm putting it on. Go check on the canapes." Veronica stood there, vibrating with thwarted malice. She knew the time for physical sabotage was over. The gown was in the room, and I was about to put it on. She was defeated in the first round. "Fine," she spat, backing away, adjusting her expensive blazer. "Have your little classic moment. It won't matter. The speeches are what people remember. And trust me, Ellie, when they hear my toast, the dress will be the least of your concerns." She slammed the door shut, leaving me alone with the victorious relief washing over me. I smiled, looking at my dress. The physical battle was won. Now, for the final rhetorical showdown at the reception. Marcus was my only hope. The ceremony was everything I had hoped for. Walking down the aisle in my classic tailored gown, I felt beautiful, impervious to Veronica's judgment. Liam's eyes were full of such genuine adoration that the humiliation of the fitting room felt like a distant nightmare. The reception was held in the gorgeous rustic barn. The music was perfect, the food was exquisite, thanks to the secured catering, and the air was filled with genuine warmth. But the true final battle was still to come, scheduled during the toasts. We took our seats at the head table. I looked down at my dress, a silent testament to the small victory I had won. The attack. The toasts began. Liam's father gave a lovely traditional speech. Then it was Veronica's turn. She stood up holding a crystal glass bathed in the soft, warm lighting of the barn. She looked stunning in a custom-made silver dress, a clear attempt to outshine the bridal party. "For those of you who don't know me," she began, her voice smooth and confident, "I'm Veronica, Liam's older sister. I'm a fashion buyer in New York, and I specialize in aesthetics. And today I want to talk about aesthetics." I felt my body tense. Liam reached under the table and squeezed my hand. She started harmlessly praising Liam's brilliance and kindness, but then she pivoted, her tone shifting to one of condescending sympathy. "When Liam first introduced us to Ellie," Veronica continued, looking right at me, "we knew she was different. She has this sweet, honest effort in everything she does. She's not pretentious, and she always chooses what she likes, rather than what she knows will elevate the moment." She paused, taking a deliberate sip of wine. "When it came to planning, we were all a little nervous. she admitted, giving a knowing, theatrical glance to her mother. There were definitely choices made that, professionally speaking, required a little finesse. A few things needed to be minimized for better optics, just to ensure the photos wouldn't be too distracting. She was using the exact phrases Marcus had warned me about. She was painting the picture for the entire room. Ellie's taste was bad, but Veronica saved the day. But in the end, she concluded, raising her glass high, we pulled it off. We have a cohesive look. So a toast to Ellie for showing us that even the most challenging projects can be brought across the finish line with a little guidance. May your life together be as well managed as this beautiful reception. The crowd clapped politely, but there was an uncomfortable silence. Everyone, particularly the Campbells, understood the undercurrent of the critique. Veronica sat down, her face radiating victory. She had delivered her final poisonous blow. The counterpunch. It was Marcus's turn. I looked at my brother, who gave me a subtle, reassuring nod. He stood up, walking slowly to the microphone. He opened his speech with a hilarious, heartwarming story about my childhood obsession with vintage clothing. The laughter eased the tension in the room. Marcus then smoothly transitioned to talking about Liam. And that's why Liam is perfect for Ellie. Marcus said, his voice ringing with warmth and sincerity. Because he sees her completely, he supports her most deeply held convictions. He's always been about substance, not about what's trending. He took a thoughtful pause, looking around the room. I remember seeing Ellie's dress for the first time. Marcus continued, his eyes drifting pointedly to Veronica, who was smiling smugly, confident her work was done. It wasn't a trending gown. It was a beautiful, bold choice of the classic tailored gown. He was using the code. The room was listening now. Veronica's smile remained fixed, but her eyes narrowed slightly. You know, the thing I respect most about Liam is his conviction, Marcus said, raising his voice slightly, his tone shifting from sentimental to deeply knowing. Liam, you even showed unbelievable restraint by not taking the advice of some people who thought Ellie's choices were a bit too limited or that they needed to be minimized for better optics. The effect was instantaneous. Several guests who had heard Veronica's speech gasped. Veronica's fixed smile vanished. Her eyes flashed with panic, realizing he was directly quoting her, confirming her malicious intent. Marcus drove the nail home. He looked straight at Liam, injecting the final fabricated quote into the anecdote. In fact, Liam, I remember you specifically told your sister V, if that dress makes Ellie happy, then the photos will be perfect exactly the way they are. And that everyone is the truth of this beautiful marriage, supporting the person you love. He raised his glass high, looking only at Liam and me. To the happy couple, may your life together always be perfect, just the way Ellie planned it. The barn erupted in thunderous applause. The applause wasn't just for the newlyweds, it was for the public defeat of the wedding bully. I looked at Veronica. She was frozen, her face a ghastly shade of red, staring at Marcus with pure, unadulterated hatred. Her attempts to manage the narrative had been exposed by her own brother's best man speech. The beautiful wedding was now truly perfect. The applause following Marcus's speech was not just a celebration, it was a loud collective judgment. The air in the reception barn moments before, filled with celebratory warmth, now crackled with electrified, awkward tension. I looked at Liam. He looked utterly stunned. He hadn't been in on the plan, and hearing his sister's precise, malicious vocabulary repeated publicly was clearly a shock. He looked from Marcus to Veronica, the realization of her deep-seated resentment hitting him squarely in the face. Veronica, however, was in full meltdown mode, though she was attempting a frantic, silent recovery. She slammed her crystal wine glass onto the table, hard enough that the stem shattered and half stood, her face contorted in a silent scream of betrayal aimed solely at Marcus. The retreat. My mother-in-law, Carol, ever the peacekeeper, immediately intervened. She gripped Veronica's arm and whispered fiercely in her ear, pulling her toward a side exit away from the bridal party. We need a moment, Carol announced to the nearest guests, forcing a strained smile. Too much excitement. As Veronica was physically hauled out of the room, the whispers began. The guests were piecing together the events. The abrupt florist changed the odd seating chart decisions, and now the explicit confirmation that Veronica had deemed the bride's choices limited. Liam finally turned to me, his eyes wide. She actually said that minimize for better optics. She did. I confirmed, giving his hand a reassuring squeeze. And she meant it, Liam. This wasn't about the dress. It was about controlling the narrative of your wedding. He looked at Marcus, who was calmly sipping champagne, his mission accomplished. Marcus, you were brilliant. You saved the day. I just used her own material, man. Marcus shrugged, accepting the praise with trademark humility. The counterattack. The respite was brief. Less than 10 minutes later, Veronica returned. She wasn't red-faced anymore. She was terrifyingly composed, with the cold, controlled fury of someone about to execute a strategic scorched earth policy. She walked straight to the DJ booth, ignoring everyone, including her own husband. I watched dread pooling in my stomach. She was escalating. She spoke quickly to the DJ, pointing toward the large, custom printed photo booth backdrop, the beautiful hand drawn floral display I had commissioned to match my invitation suite. Excuse me, Veronica, the DJ said hesitantly. This is not on the playlist, and this backdrop is part of the wedding package. My brother's wedding is my responsibility, Veronica hissed. My professional recommendation is that this drab, rustic nonsense is ruining the energy. It needs to be replaced immediately. She pulled a high end projector from a messenger bag she had clearly retrieved from a car, along with a laminated, oversized printout. She ordered a production assistant who, given her expensive suit, probably thought she was a wedding planner to drape a stark white silk sheet over the rustic floral backdrop. She then mounted the projector and aimed it at the sheet. Within minutes, the rustic, warm floral design was replaced by a massive, pulsing, high contrast black and white geometric pattern, something straight out of a minimalist fashion shoot. It was loud, aggressive, and utterly wrong for the warm barn setting. There, she announced to the room, her voice carrying an edge of manic satisfaction. Now the photo booth has style. Everyone, please enjoy the reception. The aesthetic has been saved. She had physically altered the wedding environment. This wasn't subtle critique. This was an explicit visual takeover. She was visually screaming that her taste was superior to mine and that she had the power to change my wedding day. The music resumed, but the energy was ruined. Guests were avoiding the aggressive photo booth, and the stark black and white projection cast an ugly glare over the rest of the tables. She's trying to force a style change, I whispered to Liam, feeling the panic creep in. She's proving she can still dictate the optics. Liam, however, had reached his limit. He looked at the ugly pulsating pattern, then at his sister, who was now triumphantly directing her Manhattan friends to take photos in front of her improved backdrop. No more, Liam said, his jaw tight. This is our wedding, Ellie. He stood up, walked directly to the DJ booth, and spoke calmly but forcefully to the DJ. He didn't ask. He instructed. Liam was finally choosing the fight. The honeymoon was over before it began, and the wedding day had officially become the final battlefield. Veronica stood by the DJ booth, basking in the glow of her abrasive geometric projection, convinced she had won the aesthetic war. The black and white pattern was jarring, and the guests were clearly uncomfortable, but the display loudly proclaimed Veronica controls the visual narrative. Then Liam walked up to her. He moved with a quiet, focused determination I hadn't seen since we were closing on our first apartment. He didn't shout, he didn't plead. He simply ended the war. V, Liam said, placing his hand firmly on the stand holding her projector. Veronica dismissed him with a flick of her wrist. Not now, Liam. Can't you see I'm ensuring the photo opportunities are optimized? The lighting on this original backdrop was abysmal. The original backdrop, Liam stated, his voice low and firm, was what Ellie chose, and it's what she paid for. He looked at the DJ. Put the music back to the slow set, please. He then turned back to Veronica. This is our wedding, V, not your gallery opening. You made your speech, which was deeply inappropriate, and you've tried to override the decor. This ends now. I am fixing the decor, Veronica snapped, her voice rising. Ellie's choices were dated. I am protecting your investment in the photography. You're embarrassing yourself, Liam retorted, finally dropping the respectful facade. You criticized her dress, you tried to change her seating chart, and you tried to get her florist fired. Marcus's speech didn't lie. You have been trying to sabotage our day for weeks because you think your taste is the only one that matters. He paused, letting his disappointment hang in the air. We are married now. Ellie is my wife. And this is her day. You don't get to ruin it. The power move. Before Veronica could launch her prepared defense, Liam took action. He didn't ask her to take the projector down. He took responsibility for it. He simply reached down, unplugged the power cord of the projector, plunging the aggressive black and white pattern into darkness. Veronica gasped, genuinely stunned by his physical act of defiance. Liam, what are you doing? I paid thousands for that lens. He ignored her, grabbing the white sheet she had draped over my rustic backdrop and pulling it down, revealing the beautiful, subtle, hand-drawn floral design underneath. DJ, Liam said, turning back. Get the photo booth back online, the original file, now. Veronica tried to grab the projector, but Liam put his hand over the lens gently but firmly. V, if you try to put this back up, or if you cause another scene, I will ask the estate manager to escort you off the property. I mean it. You are ruining the reception, and I will not let you ruin the rest of the night. She stared at him, hatred flashing in her eyes. She hadn't expected the easygoing, conflict-avoidant Liam to find this level of backbone. She had calculated her moves based on his passivity. She looked at the assembled guests, who were now openly staring and whispering. She knew she couldn't risk a full physical removal that would be the ultimate public relations disaster. You will regret this, Liam! She spat, grabbing her expensive projector and storming out of the barn toward the parking lot. You just chose that ridiculous cheap dress over your own family, the confession. I walked up to Liam and put my arms around him. The relief was immense. He had chosen me completely and unequivocally. You were amazing, I whispered, kissing him. She won't stop Ellie, Liam admitted, holding me tightly. She's gone to plan the next attack, but I made my stand. I chose my wife. As the energy of the reception finally returned to a genuine warmth, Marcus approached us, looking thoughtful. V's out, which means the physical threat is over, Marcus said. But Liam, you need to know what her final move was going to be. I overheard her talking to her husband on the phone while she was packing up her gear. What was it? Liam asked, dreading the answer. It was about the photos, the professional ones. She was going to wait until the high-resolution files were delivered to your family, and then she was going to digitally edit my speech out of the wedding album. She was going to erase the record of her own exposure and possibly even edit your dress. I froze. Digital erasure. A final hidden act of aesthetic control, deleting the evidence of her defeat and subtly manipulating the images to make my dress look even worse. She can't edit the raw files, Liam protested. She works in high-end fashion, Liam. She knows the best retouchers in the world, Marcus reminded him. If the wedding photographer delivers the raw files to her, she will absolutely erase the speech. She needs to bury the narrative that she was exposed. The physical battle was won, but the true battle for the memory of our wedding was about to begin. Veronica's final act of sabotage was going to be invisible, silent, and permanent. The wedding reception concluded in triumph, but Marcus's warning about the photos hung over us like a final dark cloud. Veronica was not just seeking revenge, she was attempting historical revisionism. She would erase the memory of her public defeat and potentially manipulate the images to confirm her critique of my seer's gown. Liam and I spent our short night in the bridal suite devising a plan. Our contract states the photographer delivers the raw, high-resolution files to the primary client, which in this case is us, Liam explained, pulling up the contract on his tablet. But Mom usually intercepts all important family correspondence. Veronica probably already has a plan to get the delivery address changed to her own studio in Manhattan. We can't let her touch those files, I stated firmly. The video of the dress, the flowers, and most importantly, the clear footage of your face during Marcus's speech, that all needs to be preserved. My brother's speech is the only proof that she was plotting. The intercept. We knew the delivery timeline. The photographer, a kind but traditional man named George, typically spent a week editing the preliminary set and then mailed the hard drive containing the final files via courier. We need to intercept the hard drive before George even contacts your mother for the mailing address. I decided. My plan relied on my digital skills and George's professional vanity. 1. The spoof. I spoofed a professional email address that looked exactly like the one belonging to Photos Today magazine, a prestigious industry publication. 2. The hook. I sent George an urgent email praising his stunning, uniquely classic aesthetic on the latest wedding album and claiming we wanted to feature his work immediately in an upcoming issue. 3. The lure. I requested he send the hard drive containing the raw, unedited, high-resolution original files for the Hayes Campbell wedding to a special expedited editorial processing center in Boston for immediate selection. I even included a custom-designed magazine-style rush label for the courier box, making the request look completely legitimate and incredibly flattering. George, a man who had dreamed of being featured in that magazine for 20 years, took the bait instantly. He replied within an hour, apologizing profusely for the delay and confirming he would bypass his standard mailing protocol and send the hard drive directly to the Boston address I provided, which was conveniently my brother Marcus's apartment. The decoy delivery. 2 days later, the hard drive was securely in Marcus's possession. Now we had to manage Veronica's inevitable tracking of the delivery. Marcus immediately fabricated a decoy hard drive. He copied a few generic, unusable photos from our social media onto a blank drive, put it in a box, and sent it to Brenda Vance's home address using George's standard courier. Within hours, Veronica called Liam, her voice triumphant. The photos are here, Liam. I intercepted the drive. I'm going through them now. They're exactly as I feared. I'll need to send them to my retoucher immediately to salvage the lighting and remove that ghastly backdrop. Liam played along perfectly. Oh, that's great, V. Send me a few of the raw ones for our social media, okay? Absolutely not. I'm the one managing the final aesthetic, she said smugly. She believed she had the key files. In reality, she had a handful of blurry social media pictures and a blank drive. The true files. That evening, Marcus and I met at his apartment. We plugged in the real hard drive. The files were massive and beautiful. We scrolled through the photos, Liam and I exchanging vows, the rustic flowers, the guests laughing. Then we hit the reception photos. There was a stunning full frame photo of me radiant in my Sears gown. And then we saw the evidence. Photo 412. Veronica, mid toast, her face pulled into that condescending sympathy smirk. Photo 430. Veronica's face, when Marcus started quoting her, her smile dissolving into shock and fury. Photo 435. Liam, looking directly at Veronica, with disappointment during the speech. Photo 498. Veronica's chaotic, ugly geometric projection dominating the barn. Photo 501. Liam standing firm, unplugging the projector. The entire sequence of the expos was captured in crystal clear, high resolution color. This was more than just proof, it was the entire season finale ready for broadcast. She can't edit this, I breathed, touching the screen. She can't delete the truth. This is better than the original plan. Marcus grinned. This isn't just a confrontation. This is documentation. We have the proof that her entire presence at the wedding was an attempt to control the brand. I knew what I had to do next. I wasn't just preserving the images, I was releasing them. I needed to create a permanent public record that Veronica could never erase, even if she managed to steal the raw hard drive later. I had the ultimate weapon, a visually stunning documented history of her deceit. With the raw, untouched wedding photos secured, I no longer feared Veronica's retribution. I was ready to deliver the final strike. The battle for the memory of my wedding day was about to move from the hard drive to the public consciousness. My goal was to create a permanent, beautiful, and undeniable record of the truth, a digital monument to Veronica's malice, all while appearing to be the happy, oblivious newlywed. The release. I spent the next morning curating a specific set of images from the raw files. I edited nothing. I simply selected the sequence that told the story. The triumph. A stunning close-up of Liam and me, radiant in my classic tailored gown, photo 301. 2. The deceit. The wide shot of the reception showing Veronica's aggressive geometric pattern dominating the room, photo 498. 3. The proof. The sequence of 4 close-ups, Veronica's smug face before the toast, photo 4212. The moment her smile breaks during Marcus's speech, photo 430. Liam's expression of betrayal, photo 435, and finally the shot of Liam unplugging her projector, photo 501. I compiled these images into a single elegant carousel post, set to go live on my Instagram and Facebook at 10:00 a.m. peak social media browsing time. I wrote a caption that was intentionally vague, loving, and slightly cryptic. Our wedding day was pure magic. It wasn't just a beautiful event, it was a testament to love, loyalty, and the importance of standing up for the person you choose. So grateful to my husband, Liam, for always choosing me, and my brother, Marcus, for delivering the most honest, beautiful toast of the day. Every moment was perfect, exactly as it was meant to be. Photo credits, George Peterson. Swipe to see the whole story. I didn't mention Veronica, but the visual sequence was undeniable. I was letting the photographs do the talking. The contrast between my beautiful gown and the ugly geometric backdrop, coupled with the dramatic expression sequence during the speech, was a clear narrative for anyone who had attended the wedding or anyone who knew the Campbell family history of control. At 10:00 a.m., I hit post. The fallout. The reactions started immediately. My friends and family flooded the comments with love. But the Campbells. They began calling Liam within 10 minutes. Liam, who was finally realizing the depth of the war he was fighting, ignored them all. He waited for the primary target. At 10:30 a.m., Brenda Campbell, Liam's mother, finally broke. She called Liam and put him on speaker so I could hear the full, unadulterated fury. Liam, what have you done? Your sister is hysterical. The photos are atrocious. Why did you post that awful picture of the geometric pattern? It looks cheap. That cheap pattern was Veronica's last-minute attempt to replace the backdrop. Mom, Liam said calmly. And those photos of Veronica's face, they make her look maniacal. She is fielding calls from her colleagues. They know she was trying to undermine the wedding. The photos are unedited. Mom, they show exactly what happened, Liam stated, refusing to yield. Veronica spent weeks trying to sabotage our day because she thought my wife's choices weren't good enough. Marcus exposed her in his speech, and now the photos are confirming it. This is the truth, Mom. She is your sister. She is blood. You are choosing that dress over your family. I am choosing my wife, Mom, Liam said firmly. And I am choosing honesty over the optics you and Veronica care so much about. Until Veronica apologizes to Ellie publicly, and genuinely she is choosing to be estranged from us. And you, Mom, need to decide if you want to support her toxicity or support your son. Liam hung up the phone. The line was clear. The war had moved from a family feud to a permanent schism with the evidence preserved forever online. The final threat. Later that afternoon, Veronica, having seen her reputation shatter online, sent me a single terrifying text message. She didn't call. She used the distance of text to convey cold menace. V, you have no idea who you just targeted, Ellie. I have connections. I know your work. You may have won the aesthetic battle, but you will regret starting a war with my contacts. Enjoy your honeymoon. The consequences are coming. She was threatening my career. My entire livelihood as a freelance graphic designer depended on my reputation. Veronica, a powerful figure in New York retail, had the power to blacklist me from entire sectors. I looked down at my gown, now hanging gently in the suite. The battle was over the dress, but the war was over my professional life. I turned to Liam, my face pale. She's threatening to ruin my career, Liam. She's going to use her network. Liam, however, didn't panic. He just smiled a small, knowing smile that reminded me of Marcus. She won't, Ellie. She won't touch your career. How can you be sure? Because I knew this would be her final lowest blow, Liam said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small, sealed envelope. I wasn't in on the speech plan, but I knew my sister. I prepared for this moment weeks ago. I wasn't just planning a wedding, Ellie. I was planning an exit strategy. The threat against my career was Veronica's last desperate move and attempt to prove that even if I won the battle of the wedding, she still controlled my future. But as I stared at the sealed envelope in Liam's hand, I realized he had been preparing for this final confrontation long before I ever stepped into the bridal salon. What is that, Liam? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. It's the collateral, Ellie. Liam said, his face calm and resolved. Veronica's entire life is built on appearances and professional reputation. She can threaten your career, but I've ensured she can't use her power without destroying her own. He broke the seal and pulled out a single sheet of paper, a meticulously detailed, legally binding document. The exit strategy. I knew two things, Ellie, Liam explained. First, that Veronica's critique of your dress wasn't about fashion. It was about her control over my life. Second, that her biggest weakness is the Campbell Family Foundation. The foundation was Brenda and Robert Campbell's charitable organization, a massive prestigious fund that gave Veronica immense social and professional leverage in the elite New York social scene. She desperately wanted to take over as director. Liam handed me the document. It was a formal ethics complaint and internal audit request filed with the foundation's board of trustees, detailing a recent high-profile incident where Veronica had used the foundation's name and resources to inappropriately promote a client's fashion line, crossing a major ethical boundary. I gathered this evidence over the last year, Liam confessed. She cut corners. She used the foundation's credibility for personal gain. It's enough to get her formally censured and disqualify her from ever taking over as director. You you had this ready to go? I was planning to use it to stop her from interfering with our marriage after the wedding, Liam admitted. But when she threatened your livelihood, I knew the time was now. He picked up his phone, which was still buzzing with messages from his mother. He bypassed them all and called the foundation's chairman of the board, a man named Mr. Albright, who ironically was the husband of my wedding dress seamstress. Liam put the chairman on speaker. Mr. Albright, this is Liam Campbell. I'm calling to officially submit the ethics complaint I emailed you earlier today regarding Veronica's use of foundation assets. The evidence is all there. I want a formal investigation initiated immediately. There was a heavy silence on the line. Liam, this is a serious action against your sister. I know, sir, but she has chosen to use her professional power to threaten my wife's career. She left me no choice. If she tries to damage Ellie's reputation, this entire investigation and the evidence of her professional misconduct goes public. That's the only way to ensure she stops. The chairman reluctantly agreed to start the inquiry. Liam hung up, looking utterly drained, but finally free. She will spend the next year defending her professional reputation and her directorship, Liam said. She won't have the time, energy, or credibility left to touch your graphic design career. She can't risk us releasing the evidence of her professional dishonesty. The final consequence. Just as the finality of Liam's actions settled over us, there was a tentative knock on the door. It was Brenda Campbell. She looked exhausted. Her expensive clothes wrinkled her composure, utterly gone. She wasn't holding a phone. She was holding a heavy leather-bound album. Ellie, she said, her voice strained. I saw your photo post. The unedited ones. The truth. She walked into the suite looking defeated. I'm not here to argue. Veronica called me an hour ago. She told me what you're posting, and she told me about the foundation investigation. She said you and Liam have ruined her career. She looked at Liam, her eyes full of sorrow. You chose her, Liam. You chose your wife. I did, Mom, Liam confirmed. Brenda sighed, setting the album on the table. It was the official original Campbell family wedding album, a sacred, untouchable record of every Campbell wedding for the last 50 years. When Veronica and I were planning this, Brenda confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. We told the caterer to specifically cut the wedding cake using the knife sheath she made, and we told the official photographer to use a specific high contrast black and white filter for all the formal photos. She opened the album, flipping to the first page. Every single Campbell wedding in this album, mine, my sister in law's, every one of them has the same cake cut and the same photography filter. It was Veronica's way of ensuring all the Campbell women adhered to her unified aesthetic. It was her control. Brenda looked at me, a genuine apology finally breaking through her rigid defenses. Ellie, she said, tapping the final empty page of the album, you and Liam have won. Your choices, your beautiful dress, your rustic flowers, your honest efforts, they were all perfect. You broke the mold. You showed us the truth. Brenda took a deep breath. I came here to tell you this. I am publicly stepping down from the foundation board tomorrow. Liam, you and Ellie will be appointed to take my place, and Veronica will not be invited to any family functions until she offers you a sincere apology. She put her hand on the album. This page, she said, gesturing to the blank final page, was meant for your photos. But after everything, I think you deserve your own story. You won't be in this album. You won't be controlled by this aesthetic legacy. She pushed the album toward me. Take this, Ellie, and make your own beautiful, honest story. Brenda left the suite, leaving us alone with the silence. I didn't open the Campbell album. I looked at Liam, my husband, who had just risked his entire future to defend my dress and my dignity. The dress was worth it. I said, tears finally filling my eyes, not of sadness, but of immense relief and love. The dress was perfect, Liam agreed, pulling me into a fierce embrace. But the woman in it, she's the real story. I knew Veronica would never truly apologize. But as the new co-directors of the Campbell Family Foundation, Liam and I would ensure that her aesthetic of control would be replaced by one of genuine, honest effort. My wedding day had been ruined, then rescued, and finally documented, all thanks to the beautiful, bold choice of the classic tailored gown and the courageous man who defended it.